And so in the musical instrument world, we have 4 categories. We have percussion. By the way, the piano is included in percussion. You have to strike the keys to get the sound, even though it does have strings in there. It's considered more of a percussion instrument. So percussion is anything you have to strike, scrape, or shake. So basically you're doing something to make that vibration happen. And it's all about vibration. Kids, can you put your hand at your neck and go, ah? Can you feel that vibrating, that little tingling? Okay, that's where all the sound comes from. It's from how you get the instrument to make a vibration. So we have percussion instruments, and somebody's going to demonstrate those in just a minute. We have the woodwind instruments, and they're called woodwind because clarinet is made of wood, or the more expensive clarinets are made of wood. You can get a plastic one to start with, which is nice, but the expensive ones are made of wood. You have the bassoon, you have the oboe, all of those made of wood. And the saxophone, which is bright and metal and brass looking, is also woodwind because it gets the sound from the little piece of wood called the reed. And you have to have the reed to, you make the reed vibrate to get the sound. So saxophone is a woodwind instrument. The flute is also considered a woodwind, possibly because there's not another good category for it to go to. And early flutes were made of wood, but you rarely see those now. Irish flutes are still made of wood. And then we have our string family, and those all have strings. And there's the orchestral strings, which are the violin, viola, cello, and bass. And then you have extra string instruments like the guitar, the ukulele, the banjo, the harp. All of those are also string instruments, and you have to actively make the strings vibrate to get the sound. And then we have the brass family. And the brass family, it looks like it would be real easy to tell because they're made of metal. Just remember the saxophone does not fit in that category. It's with the wood saxophone. So I'm going to have the people come up and demonstrate. We're going to start with woodwinds. Yes, woodwinds. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and start with the flute because I'm right here and it's here. Didn't know I was going to do this. So I'll just basically play a scale. Notice not made of wood, but that's okay. It's still a woodwind because we really don't have anywhere else to put it. I'm going to blow across the lip plate, and that's what makes the air vibrate, and that's what gets the sound. We don't directly blow into the instrument, blow across that lip plate. That's its lowest tone there, and you'll see as I pick up my fingers now, the tone will get higher. So as I'm lifting up, I'm actually making the instrument smaller because I'm picking up my fingers and opening holes, and that's making the instrument smaller, which makes the sound go up. But there's a lot of science to musical instruments. So the flute has a nice, pretty range. Go with another octave or two. Maybe. So it has a nice, bright, kind of shiny sound. So this is a flute, and we'll have some flutes for you to try out. The best way to try them out at first is just with a mouthpiece. Kind of a fun way to just try it and see how you get the sound. Some people will get one right away, and some take a while to really get the sound. And that's the flute. We're going to come into the saxophones next.
So I have a saxophone. This is an alto saxophone. We will have some of these for you guys to try today. But saxophones are mostly used for, I guess, jazz instruments, but they are also played in band where not all jazz is played. So I'll demonstrate a little fun music. Raise your hand if you recognize it while I'm playing. You should recognize it. Yeah, I haven't started playing. sound it'll get. Yeah, I think I may have said this already, but unfortunately nobody will get to try the bari because we only have one. But you will get to try the alto, and the fingerings, everything is the same. I've played alto for like 5 years. I just switched to bari this year, and it's the exact same fingerings. So let me play another song for you. That is the saxophone, the baritone saxophone. Next one, we have clarinet, also part of the woodwind family.
I wish we had ended with a saxophone instead of clarinet. It's so cool. This is a clarinet, and most student clarinets are made out of plastic, and then you eventually can graduate into like a real wooden clarinet. But it is also a woodwind, even if it is made out of plastic, because it has this lovely reed, just like the saxophone and oboes and bassoons and all of that stuff. So I'm going to play a little bit so you can hear kind of how the clarinet sounds. Hold on. That beat is not going to work. So it has a nice wide variety of like low notes and high notes. It's in marching band, orchestra, band, jazz band. It's kind of in everything, kind of like the saxophone. Flute isn't always in jazz band. But anyway, certain instruments are kind of in everything, and other instruments are like, oh no, you're only in this or that group. So the clarinet is kind of everywhere. So that, I think, is the last of the woodwinds that we are demonstrating today.
So, what comes next, brass?
Yes,
Yes.
brass is next.
I did want to mention, like we love the oboe and the bassoon. We can't include them in the demo just because those reeds are like $14 a piece, and so we really can't afford to have everybody try those out. And the instruments are pretty expensive too. And we do ask that as you are playing the instruments, parents be watching and helping and make sure that they don't drop. Some of the instruments are quite expensive. Brass is happening.
So brass, the most standard one that people are probably familiar with is this one, which is the what?
Trumpet.
Trumpet, that's right. So this is a baritone or euphonium, and they all get their sound with a mouthpiece. So the woodwinds, where they have a small sliver of wood that vibrates and creates a sound. This one doesn't have anything that vibrates. It's just a metal bowl. So your lips have to vibrate instead. So you have to go and do it with the mouthpiece to make a sound. And then it goes through the rest of the pipes and it makes it a better sound. Side, but not all the way down. The lowest brass instruments is this one. This is the tuba. It works basically the same way. It's just even bigger. The mouthpiece is even bigger, but same idea. Just giant metal bowl. So this will be even lower because it's a larger instrument. That's about the lowest note right there. There you go, that's the lowest one. So those are on the lower side of things. Give you all your bass notes. And then you have the trombone. I didn't bring in here, but it's the one that has the slide. And it's the only one that is different than all the other brass instruments by how it changes notes. All these other ones, all the other brass instruments have buttons or valves that when you press it, it redirects the air through another piece and makes the instrument longer and then makes the note lower. So they do it the same way. The trombone just does it literally, just let's make it longer and it changes the note. These, it all just redirects the air to make it longer and it makes it instant. But they all work the same way. And again, same idea, little metal bowl, just it gets smaller and smaller so the sound is higher instead of the little buzz in the lower one. So the trumpet's very bright, very open. It's what's used in bugle calls. A bugle is basically a trumpet, just an earlier trumpet that didn't have these. But a trumpet is very bright, very powerful. That's about a funsy thing here. This is a plunger, unused, brand new, nice. And it's just a mute that you can use. A lot of mutes will go in to make it quieter, either for practicing at home or for the song calls for a quieter trumpet, because trumpets are loud. But this one is just fun. It's used primarily in jazz to get a little wah-wah sound. There's the brass.
Well, you didn't talk about the French horn, but we do have a French horn for them to try out. It's the only left-handed instrument.
It works the same way, just instead of these two, it's those two. So you can just mirror it. Very similar fingers. Most all of them are the same fingering with slight alterations. The only one that's totally different is the trombone. The trombone, you memorize the slide positions and how far out you stretch, and everything else is, oh, F is this, and this is this, and then buttons.
One of the things that people will ask all the time, how many instruments does Zeke play? How many instruments does Evie play? And they're amazed, but all of the brass instruments get their sound the same way. So if you can play one, you can play any of them. And the strings are all very similar. So once you can play one, you can move to others. So that's how they play so many instruments.
The trumpet is my primary, so I like the sound the best. I sound the best on that one. But yes, these, it just feels a little different. I'm very accustomed to this exact shape of the bowl, of the mouthpiece. So the bigger one just feels slightly off, so I have to like mess around with it for a bit to find home base.
Alright, what is next? Strings.
Strings.
Where are your children?
Here and there.
Okay. They're taken care of.
Alright, I'm sure everybody knows what this is. What is this?
A violin.
Yes, this one is such a popular instrument. Maybe that's why it's my favorite. No, not really. It's just this is the one that I have been playing since I was 5, and so I'm the best at it than anything else, and I like it. There were times that were difficult, but my mother pushed me through, and I'm so very thankful now. So just know, parents, that there will be difficult times, kind of like with math or other subjects. Sometimes it's hard. But just keep pushing. So the violin and viola, cello, and bass all have 4 strings, whereas like guitar and banjo and some of those other strings, harp, those have more strings. So these are like the main string instruments that have like the 4 strings. And the violin is the most common one, so more people play violin than anything else. But it's just so pretty, and it's the smallest one, so it's easier to take with you places. But it has, you know, it has a beautiful sound, and there are so many cool things that you can do with it. low as you can go. But then you can go like way up here, and it's really high and squeaky. But you can also play double stops. So you can play multiple strings at the same time. So that's really cool. It's like you can play a duet by yourself. There are also chords where you can play like 3 strings or 4 strings. And that's also really cool to be able to add in extra notes, and it just sounds really cool. And of course for violin you've got classical stuff, you've got some fiddle stuff, you've got movie music. You can do just about everything with violin. What's one of the other things? Oh, plucking is also something that's really fun that you can do with your finger here. But there are also songs where you have to do bowing and then plucking and then more bowing and then more plucking. And there are times, like I'm going to show you a song where I pluck with this finger and then I also pluck with these fingers and I'm also bowing. So it's like a mix. And it's just really cool. So there are all kinds of really neat, different technical things that you get to learn on the violin. But again, it takes practice and patience and a lot of other things. But it's so great and it's so fun. But that's the violin. So that's like the baby of the family. And then I want to show you both of these. I didn't bring my viola because I had to bring children instead. So this is a smaller viola than mine. So you can see it's bigger, right? And you see this top part, this is the scroll. See how much bigger? See how much bigger that is? Okay. So the viola is like the big brother of the family. And it's a lower sound, and the strings are still 4 strings, but these are actually the same pitches as the cello, just an octave higher. So this one doesn't go as high as the violin. And the violin doesn't go as low as this one. So this one gets a lower, deeper sound. So that's the lowest note, but it can also go pretty high, just not as high as the violin. So I'll just do like a little bit on here. It's just a more mellow sound. And again, this isn't like my good viola, so it's not as strong of a sound either as a different viola, but you get the basic idea of it. This one is extra special because this is the only instrument that I've ever known or heard of that plays in its own clef, which is called the Alto Clef. So very few people actually play this and play it well and know how to read the music. So if you're looking for, extra gig opportunities and college scholarships, a viola is nice. Technically, you should just learn violin and viola because then you can do both. Now, oftentimes I get more gigs on a viola than the violin because they're like, oh, we've got plenty of violins. Can you play viola? It's like, yes, I can. And then it's just different and special. So if you want something that's more unique, that would be the viola. Share. Yes. This one, y'all probably know what this is called. What's this?
Bass guitar. Bass guitar.
No, it's a cello. Hey, Eli, can you go tell Uncle Zeke to get the bass? So this is the cello. I love the cello. This one also gets like a deeper sound. And you get to sit and play. That's also a plus. Though it can be difficult sometimes. Like we played at a wedding once in sand, and the cello and chair were both like sinking into the sand. It made for a very interesting wedding. But anyway, the cello is just vibrates the floor, and if you have like a metal chair, it can vibrate the chair. It's really nice. But anyway, so the cello is the same thing. You can play all the double stops. You can play. You can move your hand up here and play really high, or you can hang out in the low strings if you're like me and like the lower sounds. But that is the cello, and then we're gonna bring in the big daddy of the string family. It's a little bigger than this, right?
It's a little bigger.
A lot bigger.
So this is not one of my primary instruments, just so you know. These are the same strings as the violin, but backwards, E, A, D, G, starting from the lowest. It is used in orchestras, of course, but it's also very stereotypical in jazz trios and such, to use in a plucking fashion. And then without the bow, they don't even bring a bow. But normally you'd have to work on both, just like everything else. But it's a very nice, rich, low sound. So that's the highest string. So there's the low note. And then, yeah, if you were to do plucking type stuff, sound. So bass is super cool. Not a lot of people play the bass, so we always need more people to play the bass. We do have smaller basses. So when you're younger, this is not even full size. This is 3/4. So it does get bigger. But when if you want to start out and you're younger, we have smaller ones in the back that you can reach and try on stuff. And I think it's it for strings.
That's strings and percussion is next.
Percussion.
I already explained the piano.
So percussion is drum stuff. You can hear some drums back that way.
And an electric bass.
And an electric bass, yes. Are there sticks?
I did not practice.
No sticks. I will grab sticks. Abby, can you throw me some sticks? There's a bucket, I think.
Oh, it's way back there.
Yay, thanks.
There are way more percussion instruments than any of the other families, and so we just have a few of them out here, but there are so many.
Yeah, in general, if you play the violin, then you're gonna learn and practice the violin. You're not gonna be like play some viola on the side. You're gonna play the violin. Same for trumpet or most anything else. But percussion, usually you would play multiple percussion instruments. And they're all very similar. They're going to get their sounds in different ways perhaps, but most all of them are just hit with sticks. So what you're hearing in the other room over there is a drum set. And the primary piece of the drum set is a snare drum. And so when they're going doom-ga, doom-ga, is this. And in music on the radio, most music just has where you hear drums in it. That is a huge part of it, but it's used not as much as like marching band, where it's like the primary feature. So the drum by itself just sounds like a tom drum, and then it's got braided wire on the back that, when tightened up against the bottom, make it sound like that, and it gives the nice sound here. Sorry, so loud. And then at first, this is usually the first thing you learn. You want to play percussion, you learn the snare, or you don't have to get an actual snare drum, you get a drum pad. You get drum pad, you get sticks, and you start learning how to control the sticks. Everyone's pretty good at hitting stuff. You should hit stuff the way that you want to hit stuff. So you have to hit it with a bounce and not let it do that unless you want to do that for a roll. But any other time, you don't let it buzz. It has to bounce. And people don't think about it. They'll be playing, but they'll be doing this. And it's no good. You gotta bounce. So you gotta learn the bounce for single hits, or double hits. or then different combinations of all those. Percussion stuff, like playing with concert bands, you're going to do a lot of that kind of thing. A lot of this. You have to be very consistent with your sound so that you always hit 2. If you want to hit 2. Any one of those, I miss one, it sounds 1, you'll hear a little hiccup, and you'll be like, hey, something sounds different. So you have to be very precise with it. You have no notes to worry about, it's just pure rhythm. So the rhythm you're going to learn is usually more complicated than other instruments because you're not doing notes, you're just doing straight up rhythms. So the rhythms are getting more complicated usually. So the snare is like the primary thing you learn. And then other drums, this is a conga, not a bongo. Bongos are the same thing, but smaller. And usually you have 2 of them in a set. But these you would, of course, use with your hands to get different sounds. Different songs will want that type of sound, you know, some jungly sound or whatever. That ones always have the snare in there providing the rhythm, but then you have different extra percussive instruments. So usually percussion, you know, there are 5 people doing percussion, and they're all in the back, and there are a zillion different instruments. And one kid plays this for the first intro part, but then he goes and grabs the 2 cymbals for the next thing, and everyone's going back and forth playing different instruments to give you all the different sounds that you're wanting. So nice annoying sounds here. Everyone knows a good old cowbell. There's even more annoying because there's 5 of them, so lots of noise. Not many things want that many cowbells, but it's fun. And then wood blocks at the bottom. So percussion is anything that you hit, scrape, or shake. So like a maraca, tambourine, if you're singing and you want to add a little percussion, the tambourine is a great option, and that's now you adding some cool percussive elements. So percussion is really cool, it's very noisy, and we'll have a lot of stuff up here for you to make noises with. It's going to be great. I think that's all.
I think people can go to different rooms. We have a string room right down that hall.